Very good morning, ladies and gents. Welcome here to the seminar series at Convene 2013. It's fantastic to have you here in the room, and thanks for taking the time out of your schedule to come and join us for this particular session. My name's Greg Ward, and it's been my pleasure to be a professional MC in the New Zealand and Australian markets, and this year heading fully global, heading off to Hong Kong and Barcelona a little later this year with some international clients. So we're very, very happy with that too. But it's wonderful to be able to stand here and just give you a little bit of my experiences from a supplier's point of view in terms of maximising event supplier relationships. I think one of the really, really big things about our industry is that we are very relationship based. The stronger those relationships, the better. I mean, we love this scenario. Imagine that you're standing at the back of a room, it's the final night of an amazing event, and you've watched everything go absolutely perfectly well, and you're standing at the back congratulating yourself and your team on a job well done. The thing with that is that at the top end of it, there's a group of dedicated suppliers that you've been working with very closely, you have great relationships with them, and they have worked incredibly hard and at the top of their game to ensure that you get the stellar event that you've been looking for. The unfortunate opposite of that is you get suppliers who aren't connected, they're not engaged with you, they're not pulling their weight to the right event, and you end up with mediocre events. And that is something that nobody wants to be in. That's a position nobody wants to be in at all. And the way that we achieve having the fantastic event at the top end of the game is by having a very, very strong and efficient relationship with each of those suppliers. So I'm going to go through a few elements of what I think are critical to maximising those particular relationships. So from the first point that we have here, I think it's a really bit of a no-brainer. You want to work with those suppliers who do match the value of your brand. If you've got a high-end international brand, you're not going to be working with an organisation that turns up in scuffed shoes and ripped jeans and so forth. But often there is a disparity because as an organisation we all work to budgets, and it doesn't matter how big your brand is if your budgets are still as tight as. And certainly in this particular market we're finding that budgets are shrinking. And what you have to ensure that you don't do is go to the bottom end of the market to try and make your brand look good. So fairly much a no-brainer, but it's absolutely right to shop around, but remember that you're buying value. And so you're going to have to pay for the value. If you want the top end, you're going to have to pay for that. And the challenge is that we all do, as suppliers, have room to move because we're all in business and we are able to negotiate. But just bear in mind that if you want your brand to look good, it's got to have the commensurate budget thrown to it to ensure that that does happen. This is, for me, is one of the most or more critical areas of business. As the end client, if you're a PCO, perhaps working for a client, or if you're an actual end client yourself, you'll have your own creative process and your own ideas. But it's quite amazing how much creativity and passion can be brought into your concept and your idea by your suppliers. There's an interesting thing for me that as an MC, I tend to get brought in towards the end of the process. And I'm always plumping to my clients to say, bring me in right at the beginning of that process, because there's the experience that I have over many years is going to be conducive to actually providing some creativity or ideas about run and flow of an event. And that goes for pretty much any of our suppliers across the industry. If we've been in the game for a long time, we have longevity. And you don't get longevity in a small market by doing a mediocre job. You've got to be doing a great job at all times. They can also come in and provide you with ideas that you might not be thinking of. We're all different, and you're going to be able to offer a different perspective. But I'm going to add a caveat to this one, and this is something that happens far too often across the industry, is that people ask multiple organisations for creative ideas to help them out with their events. Those ideas come in different forms. Some people come and actually present, some people send through PDF proposals, and they've got a range of ideas in them. You need to have, in the industry, integrity regarding the creative ideas that come in from outside your organisation. If they do come in and that particular organisation does not win a contract or a tender with you in this respect, you've got to have the integrity that that idea is belonging to the individual who's actually sent it through. And in some way, find some way of either using them or recompense them or not use the idea. I've had so many stories of people coming and going, wow, that was a great event, and somebody going, yes, actually, well, those were all my ideas, but we just didn't actually end up getting the job, but those ideas were used anyway. So there's a bit of a double-edged sword in that. Do use your suppliers in terms of creativity because they have oodles of it, and they're there to help you. They're there to make you look good. I think earlier on in the breakfast this morning, I was talking about our whole industry, and the thing about it is people go in with a passion for a particular sector of the industry. We don't one day wake up and go, I reckon I can make a whole load of money in this industry, and then try and make some money in it and add to the, some ideas about what you want to do. We go in there because we're loving what we're doing, and the money comes in as a result of the work that we do. And the better we get, the longer we work at it, the more value there is for you as an end client. And so definitely involve those suppliers in the creative process, and it will pay dividends for you. Sharing information and priorities. This is something, again, that I've had a fair amount of experience of. Certainly as an MC, I tell people that I'm an information junkie. I want to know everything about every single aspect of how the event is going to run, how the night is going to run. And it's not because I'm a nosy Parker and want to know every little bit of it and, am I looking for some kind of commercial advantage? No, I'm not. What I'm trying to find is all of the ins and outs and points that may be happening over the course of an event that will allow me to add the best value of what I do to a particular event. And all suppliers are the same. They want to know how you're going to put the event together and how well they can actually add things for you. It's an interesting situation when people hold on to information. It doesn't give you the ability to do your best for that particular client. I've got another situation that happens fairly regularly with agencies. Sometimes agencies come to me, bureaus I should say, talent bureaus, and say, we'd like to book you for a particular event on a date. And they won't tell me who it is, what sector it is, where it is, anything about it apart from this is what it is, here's the date, and how much you're going to charge for it. That's really, really difficult to do. I might have already worked for this particular person before. I might know critical information about this particular client that I can provide further forward that is going to be of great benefit to the event. It's really very difficult as a supplier to price in a vacuum as well. The more information that we have, the better it is for you. And we're not saying, bring them on board, give them a password to your corporate intranet and let them trawl through all your financials. That's not what it's about. But it's about showing the level of trust that allows that individual to be able to come in and give you the best possible job. The trust factor is a big one. So that agency thing where if the trust isn't there, then you already feel that you're not trusted in it. I think that relationship is based on honesty, openness, and trust. Understand and trust your supplier's area of expertise. Now, if a supplier comes through and says, you give them a brief, and they say, absolutely, we can do that 100%. It's what we do every day. We're fantastic at that. First thing, you should believe them if they're going to come and tell you that. But check it out. Obviously, like any situation, if you're trying to get a supplier to come in and work with you on a particular event, you're going to do some reference checking. You're going to go through it. You're going to know probably their backstory about what they do. So if they're saying, yes, we can do that, that's exactly what we could be able. That's what we can do for you. The converse side of this is when a supplier says to you, no, that's not something we're comfortable doing, and it's not our area of expertise, but it's going to cost you more money to get an extra person to come in and do that. Don't push your supplier to try and change how they operate and structure it unless they are fully confident that they can do that. There's two sides of the coin in expertise. We all like to say and do our best to be the best for you in a particular area. But as suppliers, we also know our limitations, and we know where we're very good, and we know where it's a better option to actually bring somebody else in to ensure that you get the absolute best out of that event. That again comes down to the relationship and also our own supplier relationships all throughout the industry. It's a very cool thing that as we grow through the industry, you get to know various individuals within, and it could be, certainly from my perspective, it could be a band, it might be a caterer, it might be an event producer. And you know that when you walk inside the room, you look across the room and you see somebody that you know and you trust and that you have a relationship with. Those moments take a level of stress off an event. because you immediately know that it's going to be all right. You trust that person and you've had a great working relationship with them. And so building those relationships and maintaining them are critical in making superb events happen. Don't grind your suppliers too low or too often. Ultimately, we'd probably like to say don't grind your suppliers at all. We'd love to make as much money as possible. The aspect is that we are all in business. One of my favourite quotes comes from P.T. Barnum, the great showman in America, creator of Barnum and Bailey. And somebody came to him once and said, Mr. Barnum, this thing that you do, this show business, is it really a business? And he said, of course it is, otherwise they'd call it show. We are all in business. We all have overheads, we all have staff, we've got families, like every other single business, whether you're a major corporate, whether you're a PCO or an event producer, as suppliers, we're all in the same boat. Ultimately, we want to have profitable businesses, but we also want to be able to do the best for you. The thing about being able to negotiate pricing and preferential pricing with your suppliers is a really strong and enduring relationship. And the longer that relationship continues, the better it is for all concerned. I heard a interesting story last night. I was sort of having a chat around the industry about suppliers and how we all operate. A particular company had a 12-year relationship with a particular client, and all of the negotiations had been done with the owner of the company. The company grew, and as it grows, they bring in staff. Those staff come on board, and what was a handshake agreement in terms of pricing and has been enduring for the last 12 years, a new staff member comes in, calls up and says, I need your price, want your price now, don't have time to muck about. And even though being told that there was an existing relationship, was forced to actually put a price in, the information came back and said, your price is too high, we've gone somebody else. And all of the years of relationship building and constant work along those lines is changed irrevocably in the moment of, because there's the communication factor within the organisation itself, within the client, hasn't been passed through. Often happens as well when we have changeovers in staff within organisations. All those wonderful relationships that are built up are then suddenly thrown higgledy-piggledy on their ear. And that makes it very difficult from a supply point of view. So please do keep that in mind. We know you've got budgets, and the stronger that relationship, the more likely it is we're going to be able to come inside your budgets or marginally over that budget to make sure that we're giving you the great event, but only if we've got the relationship in place and an enduring relationship as well. We're there to help you. That's exactly what we want to do. This particular line here, it'll be good for your business. As a supplier, this is heard so often, and I have to say it often comes from the charity angle. It's a very normal kind of angle. I don't begrudge somebody in the charity game who is trying to get as low as possible right across the board. It is about making as much money for the nominated charity. But what happens is people come to you with a line about, come and do the event, it'll be good for your business, but what they're not doing is they're not offering value. Because it's not all about money. We don't have to worry about the actual money side of it in this kind of equation if we're talking about a charity event. But what we want to know is, where is the value? Can you provide the commensurate value? If you've got a service that costs $5,000 and you'd like us to come in and do that for nothing or for very little, where is the $5,000 worth of value that can be generated? Now, just being at an event is not going to do that. We all know this. Standing in front of a room with 300 CEOs does not get you a job. And I can say, hand on heart, that out of every charity event that I've done where I've had this line, it'll be good for your business, I've not had a single piece of business off the back of that. And so think about how can you possibly create value for individuals in that respect? Perhaps it's connecting those suppliers with individuals within the organisation. Can you act as a maven? Can you be a connector for those to build relationships that allow you to have the value in those situations? Do you have access to the mailing list? Do you have access to advertising or brochures that go out to a membership of such an organisation over the course of a number of publications? So find some way of giving like for like. If you want to get a discount in price, find where the value lies, not just about money. I think it's one of the biggest things for me. Is as a performer, it always tends to be the performer, I find, as well, that is asked to do it for free when everybody else is actually picking up some money. It might sound like a rant, but it is a genuine industry issue across the board. This is one of my favourite little sayings. People don't have relationships with businesses. People have relationships with people. And this is what I was talking a little bit about before, when you have situations where new staff come on board. You might have a phenomenal brand in a client that you've been working with for many years, but you don't actually have a relationship with the brand or even the location. You've got a relationship with one person, or maybe two in the organisation. The moment they go, that relationship is now lost. So there's a twofold thing here. Yes, the supplier has to be pretty canny as well in that ensuring they have a relationship with multiple different people within an organisation. Sometimes that can be hard, especially if that organisation is relatively small. But it is definitely about having an ability to have a longer and enduring relationship right across the board. That is a little bit of a two-way street as well. Get to know, as a client, or the end client or a PCO event company, get to know your suppliers on much more than here we've used you for 2 days out of 6 months. That's all we really know about you. Get to know who they are, what they do, what drives them. And the longer and bigger that relationship becomes, the better it becomes for all concerned. Communicate. Working with your suppliers should be an absolutely pleasurable experience. There are situations, however, when those relationships do break down. And this goes right across the board, and it's very normal. We're all human, and we all work to very tight and challenging deadlines, and sometimes there are issues that happen and mistakes are made. I have a personal experience of this, which is where I used to run a boutique talent agency. And we would hire high-end circus-style performers, roustabout performers, jugglers, acrobats, and that kind of thing. And so we would hire those out to various organisations. We did a hire for one particular client, and every time the individual came up and did his performance, he did something wrong. And so I turned to my business partner and I'd look at this performance and I'd go, never going to hire him again. But I didn't actually go to that person and say, by the way, this is what you're actually doing wrong. All I did was go up and say, oh, well, thanks, mate. Yeah, it was great. Here we go. Here's your pay. Off you go. That situation doesn't allow any kind of learning or challenge or growth, because as an employer, certainly in that case, even if it's a contract staff member, the ability to actually go, no, this is the requirement, this is what you did, this is where the shortfall was. What we need to do is find a way of bridging that. Because as it happened, I did that to a number of different people. And as a consequence, I started to find that performers were becoming very short on the ground, because I was putting them in the basket of, I'll never use you again, I'll never use you again. And it all came down to the fact that I hadn't learned myself that to effectively, or get the best usage out of an individual, was to communicate with them. And the moment you do, the moment you actually start talking, you find out all sorts of things that are so not face value, everything that's going on in the background. And it gives you the ability to actually turn a situation from what is a negative into a real strong positive. It's often the moments when you actually stop and actually communicate, and that's all good. There's another factor as well, is that sometimes people get into that whole thing of like, well, if you don't know what's wrong, I'm not going to tell you. And that is a really not a good position to be in on either side of the coin, because it's not communicating. It's simply withholding information. And so if somebody's done something wrong, let them know. But do it in a positive way that's going to give you an ability to perhaps turn that situation around. Again, it's about continuing a relationship, not necessarily ending a relationship. Very, very important stuff when we are talking about supplier relationships. So, finally, this. The top 5 reasons why meeting planners and event planners stick with their suppliers. So Meeting Professionals International, which is MPI, published their 2012 Business Barometer findings, and they explored 5 elements of great relationships between planners and suppliers. They interviewed over 1,000 individuals in the event meeting service industry with a 50-50 split between planners and suppliers. This was done in the United States, and this is what came out from there. And so if you're working with suppliers that have these, then you're absolutely in the absolute right spot. So those suppliers who have got good customer service, they're the people who pick up the phone when you call. They're the people who respond, who return your calls within a reasonable time frame. They're the people who keep coming up with the goods time and time again. That's who they are. Competitive pricing. That doesn't mean that they're the bottom of the barrel. Doesn't mean that they'll sort of drop their price at the first moment that you ask for a discount. But they're people who know the value of what they do, and they know the worth of what they do, and that you understand their worth as well. Having good personal relationships. So this whole session here is about having or maximising those relationships within the industry. And it comes down to the communication factor and getting to know people a little more than just the skill set or the service that they're providing. The offering is uniquely suited to the event planner's needs. This is really important as well. The whole idea from a supply perspective is that every single one of your events is different. Everyone has unique needs. And if we're not catering to those unique needs, then we're not servicing you in the right way. But if you are getting great service from a great supplier, you're in the right spot. It really is about holistically looking at your needs as a supplier and making sure that we match up with your requirement and exceeding those requirements, perhaps offering you more than you are expecting. And good follow-up and being proactive as well, offering you solutions to situations that perhaps you haven't seen. If there might be something on a stage that needs to be changed, you can't see it, you're deep in something else because you've got a huge amount of information that you're trying to deal with on a particular night, and you've got event suppliers who are looking out for you and your needs. So those particular people are gold. And that is the top 5 reasons why suppliers stay with those clients. So that's a brief run through there, maximising event supplier relationships. And I've got just 5 minutes basically to go here. So if there are any questions off the floor, I'm very happy to take any questions that you might have in terms of supplier relationships or anything at all. I'm an Aquarius, by the way. Long walks on the beach, I like those too. No, in that case then, we shall evaluate this session for you right now. It's quite interesting. It's like being at school and just getting evaluated straight away. So, say again? Oh, lovely. Oh, so on the plasma screens that you'll see out here on the sides of the building, our lovely IML technology, you will see the question here is how the presentation matched your expectations of the seminar topic, rating from 1 to 5. So how did the presentation match your expectations of the seminar topic? Can you please rate that now? 1 to 5, 1 being poor, 5 being excellent. Once again, using the handset that you have on the table there, the relevance of the information presented to planning your events. Is it 1, not at all relevant, or 5, very relevant? Please make your decision now. Fabulous. Excellent. Thank you, Tom. There we go. So, ladies and gents, thanks very, very much indeed for coming along and sitting through our presentation here this morning. The next presentation is at 1:30, and that's with Josh Dry. He's talking around social media, and also the Show Gizmo device. So certainly look forward to catching you there. In the meantime, please do continue to enjoy your show right here at Convene 2013.